Ansoff, a 2 by 2 matrix that has sat in the corner of every strategy textbook for 60 years, named after the mathematician and strategist Igor Ansoff, who first set it out in a 1957 Harvard Business Review article and refined it in corporate strategy in 1965. In the same body of work, Ansoff coined the term synergy. The matrix is less celebrated than synergy. It should not be. The matrix maps growth options against two axes: existing or new products and existing or new markets. The result is 4 quadrants. The framework does not tell a board what to choose. It tells a board what kind of risk a choice represents before the financial model is opened and the executive enthusiasm takes over. Here is the case it is going to be tested against: Amazon. Founded by Jeff Bezos in 1994 as an online bookseller in Seattle. Today, the largest cloud computing business in the world, one of the largest media companies, and the dominant e-commerce platform across multiple continents. Amazon has not moved through one Ansoff quadrant. It has moved through all 4, sometimes simultaneously, and the governance record of each move tells the board something the framework is designed to surface. The 4 quadrants in sequence from lowest to highest risk. Market penetration, existing products sold into existing markets. The strategic logic is deepening the footprint. More customers, more purchases, higher frequency, greater share of an already understood market. The risk is lowest because the organisation already knows the product and already knows the customer. The governance question is about execution and unit economics, not about capability uncertainty. Market development, existing products taken into new markets, new geographies, new customer segments, new distribution channels. The product is understood, the market is not. Risk increases in one dimension. The organisation must learn a market it has never operated in, against a cost base it has already built. Product development, new products sold to existing markets. The customer is known, the product is not. The organisation must develop or acquire a capability it does not currently hold for a customer base it understands well. Risk increases in the product dimension. Diversification, new products into new markets. Both dimensions are unknown simultaneously. This is the highest risk quadrant. It requires the organisation to learn a new product and a new market at the same time, typically without the institutional knowledge it holds in either. A board that approves a diversification play without explicitly naming it as the highest risk quadrant has not calibrated the decision correctly. Amazon from 1994 to 1997 was a pure market penetration play. One product, books, sold into one market. The nascent internet consumer in the United States. The question for the board was not about diversification or capability gaps. It was about unit economics. Can this model become more efficient as it scales? Bezos's 1997 shareholder letter answered that question with the terms he expected the board to hold him against. Long-term free cash flow, not short-term profit. Every subsequent board conversation about Amazon's growth was an extension of that frame. The 1997 letter is the governance constitution of the company. A board that did not read it had not done the work. From 1998, Amazon moved into market development. It launched websites in the United Kingdom and Germany, followed by France in 2000. The product portfolio was substantially unchanged: books, then CDs and videos. The markets were new geographies. The risk the board was approving in this phase was operational complexity, without the unit economics proof yet established for international operations. Amazon understood its US customer. It did not yet understand the German consumer, the UK logistics infrastructure, or the French regulatory environment. Market development risk is always this: the organisation takes its existing playbook into a territory that has not yet validated the playbook. The discipline the Ansoff framework provides is naming that risk clearly, rather than treating geographic expansion as a natural extension of a proven model. From 2001, Amazon moved into product development. 2 examples define this phase: Amazon Web Services and the Kindle. AWS began as an internal infrastructure project. Amazon's own engineering teams were building the distributed computing systems required to run a rapidly scaling e-commerce operation, and they were doing it badly because the systems were not designed to be reused or shared. Bezos mandated what became known as the API-first approach. Every internal service had to be built to expose its capabilities through an application programming interface, as if it were a product being sold to an external customer. The discipline of that mandate, which was deeply unpopular internally, transformed infrastructure into a product. AWS was eventually launched externally in 2006. The Kindle followed in 2007, a hardware device sold to Amazon's existing market of avid readers, requiring Amazon to build manufacturing and hardware capabilities it had never needed as a software and logistics company. The governance question that the Ansoff framework surfaces in this phase is precise. Is this a product, or is it an infrastructure project that the executive team is choosing to monetize? The distinction matters for capital allocation, for how failure is defined, and for the strategic narrative presented to shareholders. AWS was framed in its early years primarily as infrastructure. Its eventual commercial success retrospectively validated the product framing, but the board approving the investment in 2001 was approving an infrastructure project with an uncertain commercial future. That is a different governance decision than approving a product launch. From 2005 and with increasing speed after 2014, Amazon entered diversification. New products into new markets simultaneously. Amazon Prime Video launched in 2006 as part of the Prime membership offer and became Amazon Studios, a production company, in 2010. This moved Amazon into media production, a new product requiring entirely new creative and contractual capabilities, in the entertainment and streaming market, where it had no established position. PillPack, acquired in 2018 for over $700 million, moved Amazon into pharmacy, a new product in a regulated market with established incumbents and customer behavior built around physical dispensing and personal relationships with pharmacists. Haven is the governance case study this quadrant produces. Announced in January 2018 as a joint venture between Amazon, JP Morgan and Berkshire Hathaway, Haven was intended to disrupt employer-sponsored healthcare in the United States. The three organizations collectively employed more than 1 million people. The ambition was to redesign healthcare delivery for their own workforces first, and then to offer the model more broadly. Haven dissolved in early 2021, 3 years after its announcement, without shipping a product. The post-mortem question for the three boards is the question Ansoff's framework is designed to produce before the approval, not after the failure. What capability did any of these organizations hold that was relevant to designing and delivering a new healthcare product in a new healthcare market? Amazon understood fulfillment and data. JP Morgan understood financial services. Berkshire Hathaway understood insurance risk. None of them understood clinical delivery, regulatory navigation in a market as fragmented and lobbied as US healthcare, or the employer-employee relationship as it applies to benefit design. Three distinguished boards approved a diversification play in the highest risk quadrant without a clear answer to the capability question. The framework would have produced that question before the approval. It did not, because the framework was not in use. The Ansoff matrix has two limits a board should hold alongside its utility. First, it treats markets and products as fixed categories, when in practice both evolve as the strategy executes. AWS was infrastructure until the API mandate made it a product. Prime was a loyalty scheme until it became a studio. The matrix produces a risk assessment at a point in time. A board must track how the quadrant classification shifts as execution changes the nature of what is being built. Second, the matrix maps risk at approval, not across time. Amazon's board did not make one decision that carried the company from books to cloud computing to media production. It made hundreds of decisions across 2 decades, each of which was a step across the matrix. The risk that was approved in 2001, with the first AWS investment, was still resolving in 2021, when Haven was dissolved. Growth strategies are not events. They are trajectories, and the board's obligation is to track the trajectory, not only to approve the first step. The positive contrast is Microsoft from 2014 onwards. When Satya Nadella took over as chief executive, he did not simply announce a strategy. He announced an Ansoff frame. Every major capital allocation since has been positioned in public against an explicit quadrant. Market penetration in Office and Windows, with a clearer unit economics narrative than the company had used in a decade. Market development as Azure scaled into enterprise and public sector workloads. A known cloud product taken into customer segments Microsoft had not previously won. Product development with the GitHub acquisition in 2018, a new product into an existing developer market the organisation already understood. Diversification with LinkedIn in 2016 and Activision Blizzard in 2023. Both were publicly framed as the highest risk quadrant. Both were accompanied by explicit capability arguments to investors and to regulators. What makes Microsoft the positive contrast is not the absence of failure. Bing has cost the company an order of magnitude more than it has earned. Cortana was shuttered in 2023 after 9 years of investment. The Nokia handset acquisition was written down by $7.6 billion, 15 months after it closed. The positive contrast is that each of these closures was framed publicly in shareholder communication as a quadrant decision being reversed. The framework was in use both for the approval and for the withdrawal. That is the Ansoff discipline working as designed. 3 things to carry forward. A reading: Ansoff's 1957 Harvard Business Review article, Strategies for Diversification, and Bezos's 1997 annual letter to shareholders. Both are short, both are canonical. Read them together and the Ansoff framework and the Amazon Governance Constitution become the same document. A question. For each major capital allocation your board approved in the last year, identify the Ansoff quadrant. If you find more than one diversification play running simultaneously, ask whether the organization has the governance bandwidth for both. If the answer is uncertain, the question has already been answered. And the wider library, Ansoff tells you the risk category of a growth choice. Freeman's stakeholder theory in Strategy Room Note 9 tells you whose interests that choice disturbs. Mendelow in Strategy Room Note 10 tells you how much power those stakeholders have to resist it. The 3 frameworks belong in sequence. Use them in sequence. Curated by Matthew Doyle. Made Partners.